Welcome back to Old War Stories with Uncle Jay. I have another one here from Tiny Middle. This one is simply entitled Camera Displays. Oh man. I can't even remember a name I was going to give you. Oh, I remember it now. Okay. Sheldon Johnson is a name to keep in mind. That was a manager that we had there who worked there even before my time. And nobody would know what that means, who it is, and since that guy didn't work there anymore, if we had to call for him, that means there's something going down. So let me get into the story and we'll get back to that if I recall. But just basically, if we caught somebody trying to steal a camera, we would page overhead on the overhead for Sheldon Johnson to come to the camera displays. And then all of the managers would need to drop what they're doing and come down there. I actually had the luxury of doing that once, but it ended up that the issue was de-escalated and we got the guy out of there. So the first part of this came when they wanted to revamp the camcorders. It was sort of like an L-shaped counter. And well, it was square, but that L of it was the cameras, and around the corner on the short side were the camcorders. And at the time, you had MiniDV tapes, and you had the ones that took those miniature DVDs. So as far as that went, they one time said, "Oh, we need you to change out all of the camcorders for that." Now, all of these displays had to be powered and secured. That was another great thing. So, as far as powering them, many of the camcorders included some sort of power adapter, and there was a little cabinet underneath where you could get in there. But unfortunately, when they built this thing, the little stands they were about yay tall, and then it had sort of a receptacle that would go into a pipe, and it would just kind of sit there, and it had a tripod screw thing, and all that to attach to the camera, and that's how it was there. These pipes came down to a flat metal plate held in with 4 screws. Well, whoever put this together, or maybe it was a kit, I don't know, whoever put this together used screws that were just a little too long. So I went in there to start changing this out, and the top of my hand is getting scratched up from them screws. So I said, no, I'm bleeding already. This isn't going to work. So I went to the manager and I said, listen, I know you told me to do the camera displays, but we got a problem. The screws are too long. And I keep getting scratched up from this, and I'm sure that you don't want a workman's compensation claim. So I'm going to need some work gloves. Shit, do we have any of these? I don't know. Wayne, go to Home Depot and get some work gloves. So they got me these work gloves, but of course they didn't really do much good. It offered some protection, but it was just fabric like this that the sharp point of the screw pokes right through. They needed to be sort of more of a leathery type or suede type material, like gardening gloves kind of thing, where it actually protects your hands instead of just being gloves, stuff like that. So they would mount, and it had the way the stand piece would go on the cameras with a Torx security screw. We had the bit for that, but that was common. You can get that thing anywhere. But it also had an alarm. All right, and that pans into the regular cameras also, which were in a similar fashion, but not quite as with the same stands. The security thing was a stick-on type device. It was a little square. It had a little red light that would flash every now and again, and it would stick on. It had a little tiny micro switch, a little stick coming out of it. And basically you would put a new adhesive pad on it and stick it on the camera somewhere, and that would keep that little switch depressed to prevent the alarm from going off. And it plugged into a box that accepted I don't know, 12, 24 of them, some shit like that. And if any one of them triggered, then the alarm would go off. So there was that, and that pans into the camera displays, which were the point and shoot type stuff, little bar of soap cameras type thing that we had back in the day of that time period. And those also had a similar thing. Well, one day they decided to spend a little money on the place and completely get a new alarm system for that. That didn't work too well either. Because first of all, the ones that stuck on, customers would peel off. And then the alarm would go off and they say, oops, shit, I kind of shouldn't have done that. They wanted to see what was under it or what it was or why it was there or something like that. Pardon me a second. Just some water. New mug. Like that kind. You can grip it anywhere because of its rhomboid design. Anyways, they spent money on this new system. And this new system was supposed to be this really fancy thing where it had, because a lot of the cameras at the time were not including a DC power jack, because that kind of wasn't a big thing anymore. And they were all coming with these lithium rechargeable batteries because nobody wanted to deal with AA's anymore. So each camera had to have its own special battery jobby that would fit in, that would power the camera and also have some function where it would trigger the alarm or something like that. Long and short of the story was there were many times that we came in the morning from the overnight and this alarm was just going off. Everything was on a hair trigger, and while the one that had the red light that was illuminated solid was the offending camera that set the alarm off, you'd look at it, everything is 100% there, it was all correct and stuff, but it was all just not made right. So things didn't fit quite right, and everything was always on a hair trigger, so that never ended up working well. If a customer came in with a security bit and they tried unscrewing it, like I saw one guy, he was trying to get the thing off. So I just looked and I said, okay, I think we're going to do that Sheldon Johnson thing. We had like 3-4 managers just walk up to this guy and go, can we help you with anything, sir? And he's like, not really, and just kind of put the camera down and walked away. So we did get rid of that guy. They still did steal cameras. Some of them were even quicker when nobody was around. But another fun thing is that was kind of a counter, and they didn't want us hanging out behind the counter there because it made it look like we weren't working. And we didn't want to portray that to the customers. But I think the best way to prevent people from stealing these cameras is to have somebody there to look at this shit. Didn't that make sense? So these things were just the biggest pain in the ass. I think the new one had some sort of code you would punch in. Oh, and that reminds me. The old system that we had, with the old system, we had older cameras, and a lot of those had, still had DC power jacks. There were some multi-voltage adapters with all kinds of different plugs that would fit many of the digital cameras of the day. And depending, you could plug it one way for one polarity or the other for other if it had different polarities in the jack. And it had a little slider where you could set the voltage, which conveniently was on the underside of it, so you wouldn't inadvertently change it. And it was kind of recessed, so you needed to stick like a, if you got a decent nail, you could, you know, a fingernail, you could get it in there and just slide it, or you could use a pen or something like that to adjust the voltage on there. One of these, which I actually own one, which was left plugged in 24/7, of course, was malfunctioning. Now, we don't know exactly why it was malfunctioning. I happened to find this, and foolishly I pointed it out. This was a thing that happened over about 3 days, where I was there, and somewhere during the day I was noticing sort of a burning electronics smell. Light, but just, wonder what that is. Second day was a bit stronger, and the third day, yeah, it was still there. And I happened to look, and there on the floor was the surge protector where this multi-voltage adapter was plugged in. And the case of it, of course, was plastic. It was about yay big. It was sort of a Walmart type transformer, but it was a switch mode type supply in there. Basically as cheap as they could fucking make it. Not unlike a lot of USB plug-in jobbies today to charge phones and other USB devices and shit. Something went haywire. Whether somebody fucked with the connector and put it reverse polarity, or it maybe rubbed up against something and shorted out, or I don't know what it was, but the little circuit board inside did not go into protection, and instead stuff started heating up. And I happened to look, and I saw it there, and there was kind of a black spot on it, and I said, black spot, that's odd. And I went and I bent down to look at it. That wasn't a spot, that was a hole that was actually burned through it, where I guess the heat was kind of building up, and there was a very fine smoke coming out of it. Very, very fine smoke. So foolishly, I unplugged that and told the manager about it and shit like that. That was a mistake. We could have burned the place down. That would have been much better. So that was kind of a shame. On the other side of the counter, directly opposite that, next to the terminal where I used to hang out most times, there was a glass showcase. This glass showcase had been there probably since the store opened. It had melamine sliding doors. They would slide opposite each other on tracks. And at the bottom of it was a lock. And the idea was you would close both doors, slide them out all the way, and then push the lock in, and that would drive a little like deadbolt through it so you couldn't open the doors. So if a customer tried to reach behind and try to do that, it wouldn't work. But the problem is it got out of alignment or got stuck or something like that. So nobody knew how to fix it, and they kind of put a band-aid on it, which was to get a sliding lock. And that was kind of hokey as well. The way that one worked was it was a U-shaped metal thing with teeth that all pointed in one direction, and then a lock would slide on that, and then you would lock that and it would put a pawl in those kind of gear teeth so you couldn't wedge it off. And the way this metal clip was attached to one of the doors was on the inside. It had a little screw with like a rubber thingamajobber on it, or plastic thing, and you would just tighten that tight so it wouldn't fall down. Well, it would loosen up over time, and then it would fall off, and other people that worked there would just leave it. And then other times nobody had the keys, so they tried to just jimmy the thing open, employees, because whoever had the key wasn't around, or we couldn't get a manager and the customer walked away and shit like that. So we kind of sort of left it loose sometimes and things like that, or slid the lock on so it looked like it was locked, but we didn't actually lock it. So there's a lot of shit like that went on. But it was poorly designed, and over the years, the abuse that this thing took meant that the bottom metal tracks, which are just aluminum, kind of people would try to pull the doors and try to get it to go, and that bent the bottom out. So oftentimes you would just try to open this thing like a normal person, and the door would just fucking slide off and fall to the floor. Customers would look at that and they're like, come on, really, guys? This is what you got? And of course, in this case were the high-end DSLR cameras and stuff like that, and the real high-end camcorders, the prosumer type stuff. So one day we had one of the managers there, Gino, which I hated. He was this big, fat dumbass. Long story. I think I told a few old war stories on him. Anyway, he said, I want you to fix that. Okay, I mean, I could see what I can do, but I need some tools. Oh, we got tools. Here, come here. We had this toolbox which had like a hammer and a screwdriver and a couple of pairs of pliers in it and maybe one or two other little tools, you know, nothing. I'm not the greatest metallurgist in the world, but I actually was able to refashion the tracks at the bottom of the door. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. And I got that all back and the doors back on the tracks where they were supposed to go. And it slid back and forth. Not well, it would still bind up because it was all, the whole shit was shot. So we had that going on. But I even got it where that bottom lock with the deadbolt would work. And we would just keep the key in a drawer. And it had an alarm thing for the store, like if somebody walks out with something, that would set the alarm off. Not that anybody was watching, but so if somebody stole it, that would set the alarm at the door off. But anyway, we had that, and I even put a sign on there. I said, please ensure showcase is locked after you are done with customer. Use lock at bottom. Do not rip doors off tracks. You know, stuff like that. I put this sign, and I put Scotch tape around the entire 8.5 by 11 sheet. Not just one in the corner here, one in the corner there, or one little vertical piece at the top, or two horizontal ones, and no, the entire thing was taped top to fucking bottom, left to fucking right. This piece of paper was not going anywhere. That worked for a short time, and then they broke it again or something. I don't know. But at that point, I was out of the shop, so I mean, out of the sales department, so it didn't really make a difference. But those cameras were the biggest pain in the ass. Oh, and there was one other one. I think I told this one about how we were going to call OSHA on Fat Ass Gino because the new alarm that they got for these cameras was too loud. And it would go off so often, something that wasn't supposed to happen, that we spent the money on this new alarm, which is supposed to be so much better, that, you know, it wouldn't have that many false alarms, but it was just as bad, if not even worse. And this thing would go off, and we'd have to immediately walk away from our customers and run over there, see somebody stealing something, or if it was just another false alarm, and then reset the thing, only to have it go off again 2 minutes later. You know, so it was this whole pain in the ass. And one other guy that I worked with said, yeah, I think I'm experiencing hearing loss from that thing going off all the time. And I'm going to call OSHA. He was a troublemaker worker that we had there. And he was really mainly full of shit. May have been an old war story called Rob Hunt, but that was his name. If there was one, I'll put a link in the description to that. You know, I got to call OSHA because I think this is too loud. Well, I mean, I don't think it's loud enough, personally, Fat Ass said. In fact, they sell an external siren I was going to get and mount up on the ceiling. And we're like, what, are you out of your fucking mind, guy? What the fuck do you think this shit is? So Rob said we need to test that and make sure it's within acceptable levels. And I said, good, because I have a sound meter, a decibel meter, VU meter, whatever you want to call it, sound meter thing. I'll bring it in. We used to sell it here. I bought it here years ago, but I'll bring it in. And we did, and sure enough, it was too loud for acceptable levels. So Fat Ass had to put tape on it, and then we would deliberately set the alarm off again and retest it until it was down to a safe level. So that was fun also. I don't know what ended up happening with the cameras, because I went into the shop and that wasn't... Oh, this actually had to be... I forget what date I said before then, but this had to be 2008 or 7, somewhere in there. 2007 and 2008. Because I think 2008 I went into the shop. So I was still in sales then. So anyway, that was that one. Yeah, whatever happened with that, I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't care. I just hope that they did steal these cameras. By the way, word to the wise, don't buy a floor model. These have been dropped, banged around. If it has a fold-out screen, it's been rickled, schniled, pearled, and marined. Don't buy it. Something, if it isn't wrong when you buy it, is going to go wrong soon. Don't buy a floor model of just about anything, because people are fucking animals. Keep that in mind. Might be an attractive price. If you only need it for a short time, maybe, but typically that price isn't going to justify that, because you're probably going to want it as if you were to buy it new, but you just got a better deal on it. Don't. It's going to fail on you, and you're going to be upset. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe, and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.